NATO alliance that has been in force since World War II crumbling just at this time. Notice this headline from the Washington Post on March 6th of this year. Spooked by Trump and Putin, Europe rushes to rearm. As all this is happening, Germany just elected a new chancellor, Friedrich Merz. He brings a conservative, pro-NATO stance that is Christ's return is imminent. Those sacrifices could begin soon. Keep watching. Keep watching what is going on in Israel. So we see all these prophetic elements converging at this time. The beast, a militarized, autocratic, cruel king of the north, emerging north of the Mediterranean, headed by Germany. There's a religious figure, perhaps the next pope, who rides that beast. He is deceptive and brings in worship of that beast and the infamous mark of the beast. And we have animal sacrifices in Israel, as they believe that will trigger the coming of the Messiah. The world will be plunged into chaos and war. Christ says if he didn't return, no flesh would be saved. All this sounds ominous, doesn't it? But there is hope. There is always light and hope in Jesus Christ, and the Bible speaks of that time. In Revelation 19, verses 11 to 21, you can read of that time that declares Christ's return. He shatters the beasts and their systems. In Revelation 17, verse 14, it says, the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords. Our hope is in trusting Christ. He is the Savior who alone will save mankind. Then he will usher in 1,000 years of peace, joy, and abundance for everyone around the world who lives into that kingdom. Believe what the Bible says. Believe the gospel of Jesus Christ, the truth upon which you should build your life. Some of Christ's first recorded words were, repent, and believe in the gospel. Do you even know the true gospel? And do you believe it? It is the key to salvation. You can make a choice to start learning that way today and enjoy the peace of mind that comes from knowing God is in charge and that he has a purpose for you and all of mankind. There is a lot to learn. And we have accumulated short, easy-to-read resources for you to understand these prophecies at ucg.org/thebeast. Visit this page now and learn the hope, future, and promise God has in store for you.
Momentous times we live in. Well, let's sing another song. Page 83. If you'd stand, notice the monitors or look at a book if you want to do that. 83. O Lord, thou art my God and King. Thank you very much. If you'd be seated, the announcements will be brought to us by Mr. Collison.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Hello to anybody who's out there watching on the webcast today. You should have got the link. I think it's going good, so should be all ready to go. Let me also extend my thanks to the McNeelys for coming out and speaking today. It's probably a little bit of a sad occasion for them, but it's a good occasion for us, so it's nice to be able to have that opportunity. Thank you to the guests from other congregations as well. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on announcements, just a couple of things about the upcoming holy days coming up. Night to be observed. We really haven't talked about this yet, but I know that some have taken the initiative in some congregations to arrange that, and that's how we're going to leave it this year. If you need to arrange something in your congregation, feel free, if nobody has taken that initiative yet, to arrange something, whether that be a group meal at the hall or arranging a restaurant meal, whatever it may be. The only thing we want to make sure is that everybody is included. Nobody should be left alone on that night. So if you want to help out in Paducah, Ralph and Cheryl Jadamski have taken the bull by the horns there. So make sure that you talk to them if you want to help or contribute. And here in Cape, Mr. Broach has got a sign-up sheet. You can talk to him about whatever it is that you can do here. I want to talk a little bit about special music. We're going to combine for the first day of unleavened bread. And the announcement I'm reading is, now is the time to start practicing. If you would like to volunteer to be part of a combined church choir to sing special music for combined services in the Clinton Building in Sikeston, Missouri on the first day of unleavened bread, no experience is required, no tryouts. You do not have to be a good singer, as the many voices will blend together as they do when we sing hymns for services. Sheet music will be provided on the holy day. We will be singing hymn number 130, To God Be the Glory. If you have questions, you can contact Marie Doolum here in Cape Girardeau or Anita Estes in Poplar Bluff. I want to get to some prayer requests. We had a Candy Vinson emailed early this morning. Her mother, Sharon Jones, was taken to the hospital last night. She writes, prayers for Mama would be appreciated. She was taken by ambulance last night with severe stomach pain, throwing up and confusion along with weakness, where she wasn't able to stand or speak. They have admitted her in Union County Hospital, and Candy was going to go up there and visit this morning. So keep sharing of Paducah in your prayers. Also, speaking of the tornadoes, I think we need to give God a big, huge thanks for keeping people in the congregation safe. I think we heard from, or people in the congregations have notified just about everyone, and I don't think we have any property damage, no injuries to anybody in any of the four congregations. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there suffering, so let's keep those people that do have damage and are suffering in our prayers in the communities we live in. Jack Leisure, the Paducah congregation, he has returned home, and he is currently at home with Cora. However, Cora is asking for prayers. Jack does not really still seem keen on doing what he needs to do to be well. So please ask God that he would intervene with Jack and show him how he wants him to live and to intervene in his life so that he can be strong and healthy again. Trudy Griffith of the Poplar Bluff congregation, she still remains hospitalized with symptoms of extreme pain and nausea. Her son Perry says she won't be leaving the hospital anytime soon. As far as I know, they haven't found out what's wrong with her yet either. So keep praying that God will heal her and that the physicians, if it comes to that, can be led to a correct diagnosis. Mona, who attends here frequently, she did have her surgery, and Mona Petty, and according to Magdalene, she is doing better after the surgery, and wanted to thank everybody for their prayers and well wishes. The Wright family, Marvin Wright of the Poplar Bluff region, he's still doing well. He's home, doing good. His daughter-in-law, though, Cheryl, she broke her ankle a while back. Does anybody got an update on that? Did she have that surgery yesterday?
She had her surgery on Friday, doing okay. They have weather around them, but nothing that caused any problem.
Okay, good. So it sounds like the surgery was successful. I know she was gonna get, examined Thursday to see if the swelling had gone down enough that they could set a pin in her ankle. It's apparently a pretty bad break. So pray for her to heal quickly. That's all I got. Does anybody else have anything I might have missed or wants to share? Don't be shy speaking up around the McNeelys. Yes, ma'am.
Miss Rita, she has been in the hospital for about 3-4 days, with fluid on her lungs. They think it's pneumonia for sure, but she's also got congestive heart failure, and she's really not doing well, so
All right.
just say for that, God heals her.
What's her last name?
Jarvis.
Jarvis. Frida Jarvis, sometime visitor here. Thank you. Heidi? All right, well, I think we're going to have another song, and after that, Mr. McNeely will be up for the message of the day.
Okay, brother, if you'd please stand. Monitor the monitors on the wall or songbook. Page 119, Teach Me Thy Way, O Lord. Teach me thy way, O Lord, teach me thy way. Thy guiding grace afford, teach me thy way. Help me to walk aright, more by faith less by sight. Lead me with thy true light, teach me thy way. When I am sad at heart, teach me thy way. When earthly joys depart, teach me thy way. In hours of loneliness, in times of sore distress, in failure or success, teach me thy way. When doubts and fears arise, teach me thy way. When storm clouds fill the skies, teach me thy way. Shine through the cloud and rain, through sorrow, toil, and pain. Make thou my pathway plain, teach me thy way. Long as my life shall last, teach me thy way. Where'er my lot be cast, teach me thy way. Until the race is run, until the journey's done, until the crown is won, teach me thy way. Thank you very much. Be seated, and now we'll have the sermon.
Good morning, good afternoon. Get my hours right here. Let me get this working. And all right. Okay, I think we're cooking with gas, as they say. So, well, good afternoon, everyone. And it's good to be with you here in Cape Girardeau, my hometown, and speak with you again. It's been a number of years since I've been in the here in the congregation to speak to you, and though I've been back and forth to visit family, it was not during Sabbath time, and so some of you know my brother Bob McNeely died last month, and he used to be a member of the congregation here many years ago, and he asked me to do the funeral. And so I came down to do that. My wife Debbie and I drove down on Thursday, and we had the funeral yesterday down in Bloomfield at the Veterans Cemetery down there. Very nice location. And it was, if you bear with me a moment, just for a little personal, all funerals are an opportunity. They're a moment. You get to preach the truth about God and life and resurrection. And this was an unusual funeral, obviously, for my brother. And it was also for his wife, Marilyn, who had died some 7 or 8 years ago now. And when she died, and they had kept her ashes, and they wanted to be interred together, so we had a kind of a double funeral for both of them. And I had known her years ago in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, before she ever met my brother. When I pastored down in Murfreesboro, I knew Marilyn and her children. She had 3 small children, and was her pastor. And then a few years later, lo and behold, she's divorced, my brother's divorced, and they meet at a singles activity at the Feast of Tabernacles, and they get married. And so anyway, she becomes my sister-in-law. The events of the breakup of the Worldwide Church of God in 1995 scrambled a lot of things, scrambled a lot of people, and we all know about that. Not going to dwell on that. But anyway, we had a moment to gather at this military cemetery and do the funeral, and Marilyn's children came. And I had known them when they were wee tykes in the church, and I got to meet them again and talk for a bit. And then my niece Lori McCormick, some of you know, and her husband David were there, and the one surviving child of my brother, his son had died a year ago unexpectedly. And so with these people there, former church members, then some of my own family, McNeely family from this area, they were there, cousins and an aunt. I think of one surviving aunt that I have, and some other distant McNeely family came in. So I got to talk about the resurrection, got to talk about the truth of God, and leave all of that in God's hands. God sorts things out where none of us can. But for those that are living and to hear the word of God, you get to always sow some seed of truth when you go to a funeral like that. And it was an unusual experience for me to do that, obviously preaching the funeral for my brother, but then former members and people who have varying shades of ideas. One thing I've learned over the years, somebody famous once said, it ain't over till it's over, or till the fat lady sings. And God's very patient with us, and let's be patient with one another and let God do his perfect work in all the ways. The truth is the truth. You preach the truth. We live the truth. No, you don't compromise on truth. But when you have an opportunity like that, I don't mind dropping the truth in and letting people know what the Bible says. And had some good conversations. It was good to be with my family yesterday. We spent the day with them and others, and just get acquainted and reacquainted. You know, I grew up here in Cape Girardeau and left here in 1970 and went to Ambassador College, met Debbie and got married, and been in the ministry now for 52 years. Yes, thank you. 52 years. And so when I come back to Cape Girardeau, I have 2 families. I have my physical family, and I got all kinds of cousins and aunts, second, third cousins floating around this part of southeast Missouri, and I'd meet them on the street, I wouldn't know them, and that's the way it is. But I've got that family, and it's always good to connect with some of them occasionally when I do am able to come back. And but I've got a second family, which is my church family, and that's you, and some of you I've known for a long time here, and others, we know of each other, and I'm glad you are here, and glad you have this very nice facility that the Quades provided here for us a number of years ago. And I knew the Quades. I think I pumped gas in Paul Quade's car when I was a kid over here, and then he came into the church, and his wife, and we're very good people, very generous people. So you are really truly blessed to have this facility here in the Cape congregation, and I know all the places we've met just about in this area, and this is the best one for you here. So you're truly blessed. What I want to talk with you about here today is a little bit of what I do and have been doing for the last couple of plus years in the church. In my role as a international education and services coordinator that Mr. Shaby kind of created and asked me to do here a couple of years ago now. And I want to share with you some of the people and experiences that I've met over the last year or more as we have traveled literally around the world to work with the people of God and help you to see what is being done in the church, and some of these travels and the additional first fruits that God is indeed calling into the church. And to begin with, this is actually a presentation I gave just a few weeks ago, the end of December, at a large conference that we had in Europe, in the Netherlands. And I gave it last month down in East Texas, in Big Sandy, at a family weekend that I was invited to. And people have always responded well to it. And I hope you will as well. And as I share with you what I think God is doing in what we call the work. The work of God is a concept that I began to hear about when I was 12 years old, and my mother began attending the services of the then Radio Church of God. And the work of God, the work of preaching the gospel. It was always about the work. We were a part of a large international worldwide work. The name became the Worldwide Church of God at some point in the late 1960s to indicate what was being done as the gospel was being preached to the world in those years, and God was calling people. And to a young man myself, hearing about that, it really did spark my imagination to hear about the work and this work of God. And to be a part of that was something that became a part of my life. It was a reason I decided to go to Ambassador College, and then had the opportunity to be a part of the work of the church and the ministry now for all these years. It's been my life. It's been your life. It's been our life together. We've been called as a result of the preaching of the gospel, the truth of the purpose and the plan of God, the nature of this world, what is happening, the course of this world, the reason of the history of the world as it is, and the way that the world is today, and where it's going with the return of Jesus Christ, and the establishment of God's kingdom on this earth, and ultimately salvation being afforded to mankind, and the time of the great white throne judgment period of Revelation chapter 20 that we understand, when all the dead that have ever lived and died and will be resurrected, be brought back to life, and they too will have their first chance to know the truth of God. All of that, as it is put together and told through the narrative of the holy days, which we'll be going back through here very soon in a few weeks, it shows us the greatness of God's purpose and God's plan. There's a scripture in the book of Acts that does speak about this idea of the work, and I want to take you there. I've got it on the screen. You can open your Bibles as well. You know, with all this technology that we have available to us today, you don't need, we think, a hymn book or a Bible. And but nonetheless, if you have your own Bible, you can turn to it as well. But it'll be on the board. In Acts chapter 15, let me set the scene for this verse. This is the beginning of what is called in the book of Acts the second journey of the Apostle Paul. They have just completed a conference of the ministry in Jerusalem to settle the issue of circumcision. That the fact that Gentiles could be a part of the church, and the male Gentiles did not have to go through the rite of physical circumcision from the law of the Old Covenant to be a part of the church. That circumcision now was of the heart, not of the flesh. And that issue had been settled. And Paul and Barnabas wanted to go back and take this message to many of the Gentile churches that they had started on their first journey, recorded in the book of Acts. But on that journey, there had been with them the cousin of Barnabas, a young man named John Mark. And John Mark had left the party in a city called Perga in Asia Minor, today in Turkey, and gone home. They had brought him along to be an assistant, kind of probably a helper. Travel in those days wasn't like we do it today with our apps, and we can call, we can reserve our hotels and order our meals and even have them delivered by Grubhub right to our hotel room, a pizza, whatever that we might want. And in the ancient world, Paul and Barnabas and the other apostles, as they traveled, they carried their sleeping gear with them. They carried a few days' supply of food probably with them, and that required a certain amount of preparation and extra work. I think John Mark was along in part for that, but he got homesick and he left them. And so Paul and Barnabas had to take care of the rest of their journey, not only to preach the gospel, but to, in a sense, take care of a lot of the physical details themselves, which became a little bit more arduous in the work. And so as they began the second journey, Barnabas wanted to take his cousin and give him a second chance. And you know the story. Paul didn't. I don't want to take that young whippersnapper. He left us the first time around. He'll do the same thing again and leave us high and dry, probably somehow the way the conversation may have gone. And the dissension got strong enough to where they said, you know what? Barnabas said, I want to take John Mark. And Paul said, well, I'm not taking him. Silas and I will go. And they had two different missions. They didn't have a church split. Sometimes people want to use that example to justify a church split. That's not what happened. You just had now 4 people, 2 missions going out, twice the work being done, I think is what happened. But what the statement is made here in verse 38 about John Mark is the one who had departed from them and had not gone with them to the work. And this is the verse where we get that phrase, in a sense, the work. John Mark had learned a lesson, and John Mark becomes the writer of the Gospel of Mark. And he later made up with Paul. We know that from 2 Timothy, because Paul tells Timothy to send John Mark with some things for him while he's in prison in Rome. So all things work together, but at this point, Paul didn't want to have anything to do with him, but he had not gone with them to the work. And so it is this concept of the work to which we have committed ourselves and our lives. And I have to say, again, as a young man, I heard, and people are responding. And just as Paul and Barnabas had this opportunity to advance the mission in their day in the work, in the next chapter of Acts, chapter 16, is the story of how Paul, here shown in this map, and Silas begin to make their way through Asia Minor, again today Turkey, and the line there shows as they begin to work their way westward. Paul thought he had plans to go here and there, and God said, nope, you're not going here. And Paul said, all right, we'll go over here. And God said, no, you're forbidden to go there. And he brought him over to Troas, over there on the west coast of Turkey there. And you see that line taking him over there. I don't know if my little pointer here will show that. I won't try to do it, but you'll see that. And that is where Paul had a vision in a dream of a man from Macedonia. It's told in Acts 16, verses 8 and 9. Passing by Mysia, they came down to Troas, and a vision appeared to Paul in the night. A man of Macedonia stood and pleaded with him, saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." Macedonia, then, was that area where Philippi was, and the other cities. It's the northern area of Greece today. But anciently, the area of Macedonia is where Alexander the Great came from. And it was a significant step onto literally a different continent. Today, we know that this is the European continent. It wasn't called Europe at the time of Paul. It was all part of the Roman Empire. But it was a major advancement, as Paul had been already going through Asia Minor, and God was leading him now to take this leap across the ocean and to land in Philippi. And you see that story in Acts 16 where he begins to work his way, and a church begins in Philippi. He goes down to Thessalonica. A church begins there. We have letters in the New Testament to both of those congregations. And the work goes on and continues. And God is leading. God was leading Paul. Now, my point in this today, to bring it down to what I want to really talk to you about, is that God is still working in regions of the world that we ourselves may not always completely plan or even understand that is happening and is doing so. And we have a number of situations that have developed in the last couple of years of people in regions of the world that we would have never dreamed. Places like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal. We have now contacts coming to us from Nepal, Myanmar, places that I have to go and look up on the map to just make sure I know where they are. And their names that they Myanmar used to be Burma, and Bangladesh and Pakistan were at one time part of India. The world has changed in several decades, and these countries pop up. And the point is, God is calling people in these areas. And Paul had a vision in a dream as God was telling him, you go over to Macedonia. And while I or no one else has we're not having visions and dreams in the same way, God is still directing us, and people are, through the miracle of the internet, if you will, and the power of the internet, people find the truth. They find the United Church of God. They see what we are, and they want to be a part of it. And we find people. And as a result of this, we have spent some time to go to these international areas where we've already have had congregations and people, and we have new areas popping up. And so what I'd like to do is walk you through a visual of some of the conferences we've had in the last, let's say, 15 months in the church, where myself and my wife Debbie, Mr. and Mrs. Shaby, Mr. and Mrs. Myers from the office, and along with others that are senior pastors who regularly go to these areas and serve these people. We've had a number of international conferences to kind of acquaint you with people that you may have heard about in some of our prayer requests that have gone out, and help you to understand exactly what is going on. I want to take you first to a conference that we had about 15 months ago in Manila, the Philippines, and we have a sizable congregation of over 500 members, congregations throughout the islands of the Philippines. And David Dobson, who's the man on the right there in the blue shirt, is our senior pastor for that area. And we have a number of elders there. And we've had actually a couple of recent conferences. We had one about 5 years ago, just before the COVID shut down. And we were able then to go back in December of 2023, 15 months ago, and hold another conference there where we also brought in people from all over Asia. Actually, it was a quite large conference. The couple on your left, I want to introduce you to, they are from the nation of Myanmar. And The gentleman on the left his name is Sengong, and his wife is Sengpan. He is a minister of the church. He is a disciple, if you will, of a man named Leon Sexton, who was a minister in the Worldwide Church of God, had been a part of United for a brief time at the beginning of United, but went back to Thailand where he knew the language and had a love for the people, and some 20 years ago or so, and he began to do a work of education, building on the legacy of Herbert Armstrong and the contacts that had been there in the area of Thailand during Mr. Armstrong's period. And Leon Sexton, a minister of the church, I actually was at Vassar College with him in my years at the time, conducted a kind of a mission, if you will, but a educational facility called the Legacy Institute. Some of our ministers have gone over there through the years. Vince Simkoviak up here in St. Louis, I know, made 1 or 2 trips over there to teach, and others as well. These two are, in a sense, disciples out of that 2-year training program that he had, ordained by him. And he considers himself a part of the United Church of God. I expect there will be some time in the future where we will likely credential him as an elder in the church. But he has about 90 to 100 members in a congregation literally in the jungles in Myanmar. And I've met him now 3 times, been to a couple of conferences in Manila where we've had them. And they both speak English. She speaks it a little bit better. But Myanmar has been under a military rule because of a civil war for the last 5 years. The government was overthrown, and the military has been fighting other separatist groups and rebel groups. It depends, rebels depends on which side you're on. There in Myanmar, and a lot of that has gone on and around where they live. He has a generator in his village for doing services and other things. Other rebel troops have come through, and he's smart enough to let them use his generator to recharge their cell phones, just to keep up goodwill. And we occasionally send money to them over there. We met with them this past July when we were in Thailand, and but he speaks Burmese, and he does understand English. His wife speaks English better than he does, but they are an invaluable couple there. We have 2 other groups in Myanmar. One is a group that is under this gentleman here, Davidson La Bay, and I've got his name spelled wrong there. It's actually B-E-Y. I added this in, forgot to spell check that one. Davidson La Bay, for those of you that have been around for a number of years, you might remember the name Saul Labay. Anybody remember that name, Saul Labay? That was his father, who came and was a minister in the Worldwide Church of God. He went with the Living Church of God in those later years and has since died. Davidson is with us in United, and there's a small group that he pastors in the southern part of Myanmar. Davidson lives in England and hopes to go back over there, but he keeps in touch with them and through Zoom conducts services. I've spoken to the group on Zoom, but that group has had to be scattered because in recent months the military in Burma has been conscripting anyone they can, old men and even women, into their army to serve. And so younger people in his group have had to flee into Thailand to escape conscription into the army. And we speak to these people on a regular basis. So these are members of the church, and they go back to the worldwide days, so they have a foundation there. There's actually a 3rd group in Myanmar under a gentleman, we call him Ina, E-N-A, Ina, and we have a regular speaking schedule of men who speak to him and his group of about 20 to 30 people on any given Sabbath. He found us through the internet and has been learning, and we've been discipling him for a period of time. So we have over 100 people scattered throughout Myanmar in various stages of a relationship with us in the United Church of God. And again, they find you on the internet. Some may have already had a knowledge of the Sabbath, but they want to know about the holy days. And we are working with them. And one of our men in another part of the country was planning to go to Myanmar during the upcoming holy days, but I just got a message from him this morning, and he's had to cancel the trip because of the political situation and just not safe. And it's interesting. He thinks that maybe because of, I think it seems that President Trump met with some religious leader recently from Myanmar, and that then triggers reaction from opposition, and so Americans watched even closer. So he decided, I think wisely, to cancel his trip over there. We're going to have to try to get these people to come over into Thailand, where we can safely have a meeting and maybe a small conference with them, hopefully sooner than later, to just continue the discipling and working with people like these and others. But we're in regular contact. You can do a lot with Zoom, but sometimes you just have to sit down and spend 2, 3, 4 days with people, have meals with them, and talk with them to just, establish a better relationship, deeper relationship, so that there's an understanding of who we are, who they are, what they need, and where they are spiritually. And sometimes you can do a lot through Zoom and the internet, but sometimes you just have to go and physically sit down. That's one of the things we've learned in traveling to these international areas. 3 or 4 days, conferencing, talking, meals, then you find out what the needs are. You find out, certain gifts or talents here or there, and that becomes then a part of the operation that we have. So these are some things to be thinking about and praying about. I want to show you 2 other gentlemen. They attended our Manila conference in 2023. The gentleman on your right there is from Bangladesh. His name is Manik. You may have remembered some prayer requests that came out from them. We sent some money to actually buy a small parcel of land, which is very important in some of these areas. That if you're going to be meeting as a church, you have to have a certain legality and a presence. And we bought some land for them. We drilled a well, which serves the community. He taught him, the gentleman on the right, he taught himself English by looking at our literature and working with a member here in the States who teaches English as a second language. And he speaks English quite well. And he has about 20 to 30 people that meet with him, and he teaches them from our booklets. He's not ordained, but he teaches them. And so in Bangladesh, he had to flee his village within the last year because some Hindus, or I think it was Muslims, that got upset with him and began to attack him and his father-in-law. And so he's experienced things like Paul did in the book of Acts, where he had to flee to another village for a period of time until things could calm down and he could go back. So a very fine man and very, very, very good man. The gentleman on the left, his name is Kashif. He is from Pakistan. Both of these men are baptized, along with their wives. David Scriber, one of our American-based pastors who goes to India and Sri Lanka, has been working with these men over the last few years, both finding us on the internet. Kashif is in Pakistan. He has another group that meet with him. They keep the Feast of Tabernacles, and they are learning. He speaks English as well. So these are 2 disciples that God has called in this region, and through them, even certain translations into the local dialect are being done in order to facilitate the teaching and the spreading of the gospel. We hope to be with them in July in Sri Lanka, where we hope to have another conference, bring them down to Sri Lanka. We can get them down there. We had to jump through a lot of hoops to get them to Manila, and we think we can get them easily down to Sri Lanka. But then we hope that some of us that are going along on this trip can, we have one gentleman that will go up to Pakistan, a gentleman from Australia that's going with us, and then if Steve Myers hopes to go up to Bangladesh. And I'm glad both of those gentlemen are going to Bangladesh and Pakistan. I don't have a desire to go to either of those places, but if it works out, we're going to go up to India to visit with a group that we've been working with in India for some time. So that is that region of the world, and many things that are taking place. And we've had a contact recently from evidently a Christian pastor in Nepal. And I understand a few weeks ago he may have even spoken in our San Antonio church as he travels back and forth between San Antonio and Nepal. And actually the contact came through Rod Foster, our minister down in San Antonio. So years ago in Worldwide Church of God, we had there was a foundation project in Nepal for a period of time. So we may have some people working there. Let me move to another conference that we had in March of 2024 now, just about a year ago in the United Kingdom. We were able to get together with about 45 to 50 of our ministry and other leading members in the United Kingdom to work with them in the United Kingdom. Let's see. I got one picture that's just not showing up on here. I apologize for that. That's one of our attendees there. But I'll just go ahead and tell you about that quickly. We, as you know, we've had to work in the United Kingdom for many years, and we have a lot of fine people there, and are working with them to develop them and revive some efforts in preaching the gospel in the United Kingdom. But we were able to have this conference and begin to take steps to develop further the church and the work there. Part of the needs that we have in some of our international areas right now is to plan for the next generation, succession planning. And that's very, very important. The United Kingdom is one of those, an aging ministry and an aging membership. But we have a core group of younger men and women able and willing to step in and to do some things, and we are going to be working with them and are working with them in those areas as well. But that was a very, very productive conference to just begin to open up stronger dialogue with those areas. In May of last year, we had a conference in Mexico City, and this was a significant conference. We brought in some of our ministers from across Latin America, South America, to a facility. This room is a building that they lease in Mexico City that serves as the office, the congregational setting there where they meet for services. Used to be a car wash, and the members rolled up their sleeves, cleaned it up, developed it, and have office space, a kitchen, and meeting space in there. Not much of a roof over it. It recently kind of started leaking, and they would like to maybe buy the place, but that's a big possibility there. We shall see. These are the group of people that we had gathered at that particular setting, but it was quite a good group. We had a very good conference there. We've ordained a new elder in that area since then. And since then, they have taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, and have conducted a number of other leadership meetings in Guatemala, in Mexico City, and other parts of Mexico. And this month, one will be down in Chile to continue to develop people in their leadership and their needs of the church. People are being called. The church is growing in this area, and we need disciples. We need more ministry. We need more people to teach and lead, and the fields are ripe, frankly, in Latin America. One of the spinoffs that was very good from this conference, I'll tell you about it, actually impacted our Portuguese area under Mr. George de Campos. We learned that one of the elders here, the gentleman all the way on your left on the back row, Jaime Girardeau, down in Chile, he speaks English, he speaks Spanish, but we found out that he speaks Portuguese. And George de Campos is been our workhorse in the Portuguese area, developing the members in Brazil as well as in Angola, where we have about 4,000 members from the church in Angola that have associated with us. And to find Mr. Girardeau and his skills in Portuguese and begin to work with that was a true godsend. And he was able to attend the feast in Brazil this past year, and we have high hopes that he can be helpful, very helpful to Mr. De Campos in speaking and visiting in certainly in Brazil, and help carry on things in the area of the Portuguese-speaking areas of the world. Again, yet sometimes we just didn't find these things out till we got into certain conversations. And oh, by the way, I speak Portuguese. Oh, really? You do? Well, we got something you can do here. All right. Let me move on to South Africa. In July, we had a major conference in Southern Africa that included our ministry from South Africa, as well as our ministry from Zambia, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. Plus, we had some Portuguese-speaking ministers come over from Angola, and Mr. De Campos translated for them into Portuguese. So it was a significant conference, very helpful for us again in that part of the world to get everyone together, the first of that nature for that region. And we have a lot of plans. We have a number of members in those areas, and much organization to be done, and people that are still being called. These are some of the attendees there at that time in that conference. The gentleman there in the front is from Angola. He speaks Portuguese. Next to him are the white couple there, Derek and Cherry Pringle from Zambia. They have been longtime members, and he's our lead minister in Zambia. He's a businessman, but he's been very, very instrumental in developing a lot of the infrastructure and working with the men in Zambia, where we have upwards of 400 to 500 members scattered across Zambia. There's nothing like going to Africa. Neil Kenzie's been there many times. We were talking about his latest trip to South Africa, but somebody once said to me, Africa kind of gets in your blood. And it kind of does when you go there and meet people and be able to teach people the truth of God, work with them. It's a life-changing experience. I've had that opportunity a number of times in recent years to visit in Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Zambia and South Africa, and work with the people there in those areas where the church has continued to grow. On that trip in July, we also were able to stop. Debbie and I stopped over in Singapore, where we have about 15 members, and there with Grant Chick and his wife, Grant and Kim Chick. We had a one-day seminar with several of the members there to go over some things to develop some of their skills, and we have had interest in people to come and be a part of us in Singapore as well from other groups. There's what we call the Scattered Church of God diaspora. As we know, there's a lot of different groups, and sometimes there's this great Church of God migration that takes place with people, and we have people who have contacted us from other groups, and for whatever reason they want to become a part of United, and there are dialogues and conversations that take place to help people make that decision. We don't go, poaching other groups. That's not our practice in United. But if people contact us and express an interest in becoming a part of us, they're certainly welcome. And we have had that in the last year or so from other parts of the world where small groups wanted to become a part of us, and we make that happen if they want to, but we try to do it in an orderly way without trying to overtly seek people and recruit. We don't do that, and but when people contact us, we certainly welcome them if they want to become a part of us, having been a part of the church, the larger scattering of the church of the years. This group in Cape Town, South Africa, very interesting. I went to Cape Town after the conference in Johannesburg at the end of July, and you see us kind of all bundled up there. That's because in July in South Africa, it's winter time. And you're down at the very tip of Africa, and it's even colder down there. And they don't have heat down there for some reason. They have it, but they're kind of tough people. We went to church on the Sabbath, and they said, bring a blanket. And in the hall that we were meeting in, nice, basic little hall in a facility, but did they have any heat? I don't think they did. And but very nice group of people. And the church has grown in recent years there. And part of what I'm showing you here is that God's calling people. And the church in these international areas is growing. The gentleman on the left is our pastor down there. Forgot, I'm not drawing his name. Vivian Bota. They're on the left and doing a very good job down there. Speaks Afrikaans and English. They have translated a lot of our booklets into the Afrikaans language, which is a major language. They have like 4 or 5 official languages in South Africa. Afrikaans being the Dutch settlers' language from the colonial days, but there are still a lot of people, black and white, who speak Afrikaans. And they feel that that's a way to reach a lot of people with the message in the Afrikaans language. So they're actually doing quite a bit in South Africa to promote the gospel with social media especially, and their website. The conference that we had at the end of December this past in Zandvoort, the Netherlands, brought together members from Italy, from France, from Geneva, Switzerland, from the Netherlands, from Germany, and from the UK. And we brought over one of our gentlemen, I'll show you in a minute, who's in charge now of our Nordic, Swedish, Baltic areas of the work. But it was the first time we've had a conference of this sort, about close to 60 people total, in the history of United, to bring everyone together to create some relationships among these European offices and churches, the Dutch, the German, the French, the English, the Italian, and get everyone working together, acquainted, and begin to make some connections. And we have some ideas and hopes and plans that if God blesses, we might be able to open up a branch European office in Europe to serve the work in those areas and to facilitate a better outreach into a very critical part of the world. Europe is going through a number of changes right now, as you're aware of. Mr. Shaby was mentioning that in his biblical worldview. And those developments could go quick. Those developments could go not so quick. We don't know. Europe has been developing for what now, nearly 80 years since the end of World War II. And the European Union is the latest form of a union of states there that began in the late 50s. Whether it's the final form of it or not, time will tell. But because of the war in Ukraine, because of political changes in America and President Trump's policies, etc., the world is in a ferment right now, and Europe especially has been finally made to wake up to the fact that they need to take care of their own defense. Where that will go and how quickly, time will tell on that. But we are poised to give the gospel in these different languages, and we're working to see what God is yet doing in these areas. Here's the one thing that has been impressed on our minds. God is still making disciples. Another way to put that is God is still calling first fruits. We don't know how much more time we have to do the work, but Christ says we must work while there is day. And while we keep one eye on prophecy, we also have to keep another eye on doing the work. And it's evident God's calling people from some of these remote areas. And I think my conviction is that God has first fruits for his kingdom in these areas yet to be called and to be discipled. And so we have to be about our Father's business to do that. And, go where, and because we have the ability to do that now, and these doors are opening, and we're working with people to work in those areas. It's creating some unique opportunities. Let me show you something right here. The gentleman on your left is one of our elders, James Ginn. He lives in Georgia, but we just recently asked him to coordinate the Nordic-Baltic area of the church, and he went to our conference in the Netherlands and then went on up into Sweden, Norway, Estonia, Lithuania, where we have members scattered across there, and he's beginning to get the church, a few scattered members, taken care of, organized, visited on a regular basis. One of our elders from New York, upstate New York, Johnny Lambert, and his wife Hazel have done a very, very good job for 25 years or more in working in those areas, but they're wearing out. And we've had to make a transition to Mr. Ginn, a younger man who has a passion for international areas, and he's willingly taken this on. The lady that he's talking with on the right, her name is Maria, and they're in a coffee shop in Latvia where they had to use Google Translate to talk to one another. Okay? She is a refugee from eastern Ukraine. She's attended the Feast of Tabernacles in Estonia with our group there for the past few years. She has a 19-year-old brother who lost his leg when he stepped on a landmine a few days before this visit in Ukraine. And after this visit with Mr. Ginn, she flew to Kiev to visit him in the hospital. So she's Ukrainian. The war in Ukraine, has been going on now for more than 3 years, and will or maybe come to a ceasefire in the near future. We'll see how that develops. But there's a face. There's a story. And she's involved in this. These are real people, and God's working in these areas. Now, here's, we're seeking to do some things in this part of the world. This is a Facebook page of the Nordic-Baltic area that Mr. Ginn is working to develop. He started a podcast and working with our few scattered members up there. But this is an effort to just build some brand recognition and comment on world events, European events. Here's another meeting that he had with some people, three people in Latvia, where they were talking about how to reach people in the Latvian culture with God's truth. Okay? My point is, we're not just coasting to the second coming of Christ. There's still a work to be done. We are endeavoring to do that. This area that in the Nordic Baltic area, we're taking another run at it. And as I mentioned, Mr. Lambert's yeoman efforts for many years. He's done a great job. He's passed the baton on to Mr. Ginn, and Mr. Ginn, has the energy and some differing ideas. One of the things that you should be aware of is the fact that, here's an example. This is our Beyond Today magazine in Russian. Now, we have a lady that sits just right next to me across the hall in the office, Natasha Teague, who has translated most of our booklets into the Russian language. She has them all laid out here on her desk. And she translates a Russian language copy of our Beyond Today magazine, every issue that comes out. If the Ukraine war would ever end, then we can restart some efforts to reach people in Ukraine who are going to be very hungry for some hope. And we've got Russian language literature, and many of you know Victor Kubik. He's got an interest in that area. He speaks Ukrainian and Russian. He and Mr. Ginn are working together to do some things. And so this passing of the baton into a new man, Mr. Ginn has created some new opportunities. Mr. Kubik is working there with his particular skills and still his desire to reach people into these areas. So we have Russian language literature. And in these areas, with that and English, we can reach some people. So these are efforts that are being made by some of these people and on Facebook pages to reach into these parts of the world to bring the truth into this area. So as we look at this, you know, the work has been going on for decades. And I mentioned it fired my imagination when I was a young man. Well, I'm not a young man anymore. I still think like a young man, but the calendar tells me I'm not. And but I continue to work and do. But we have been through so much in the church. We all know that, and we are smaller in numbers. And yet God has given us the opportunity to still reach people around the world. And people are still being called. There's a scripture in Zechariah 4, verse 10, that is well known to us. Who has despised the day of small things? We've looked at this verse for many, many years. And especially in the United, knowing we were much smaller than in our glory days of the Worldwide Church of God. And we're still small. But a scripture like this should impact our thinking not to despise the day of small things and the work that is before us. Zechariah's prophecies here were to a small group of Jews who had returned to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. Much smaller group of people after the Babylonian captivity. They had a big job, but they had a very little strength. And yet they did it. They had to rely on the Spirit of God, which is the same power that's available to us to get it done. Zechariah, when you read the book of Zechariah, you see all the visions that he had of God's greatness, God's power in this world. I love to dip into the book of Zechariah and read about these chariots racing through hills and these fantastic visions that Zechariah had. It's better than Lord of the Rings. It's better than Star Wars. I always tell my students, I said, this is the original stuff for science fiction and Star Wars, Star Trek, and Lord of the Rings and Hobbits and all the fantasy stuff that is so popular. The original is in the Bible. And Zechariah is really fascinating. But powerful visions, really of the power of God. Working on the earth. Horses rolling over the landscapes. And God bringing peace and rest. And doing God's will being done among the nations at that time. The point is that we've got to read those verses, look at a verse like this, and not despise the day of small things. We must have a can-do mentality of a work to preach the gospel that is still going on. Reading scriptures like this, believing the power of God is with us, the power that is described here to accomplish big, big things. In 2 Kings chapter 6, there's a story of the prophet Elisha, who with his servant are surrounded in their small village by Syrian troops on one occasion. And you know the story. The servant of Elisha goes out and he sees the armies of the Syrians pin them in. They're cornered. They can't get out. You know, and he's probably looking at that and thinking, the end is here. And that's the geopolitical reality of the moment for that servant of Elisha and the prophet. Well, Elisha comes out and he says, look, open his eyes, God, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Don't fear. And behind the Syrian armies, they see these chariots of fire, angelic armies. And those people, their eyes are open, and he saw. We have to have that type of vision as well, where we see the spiritual dimension. We're making progress in areas. We're making progress. We're rebuilding. We're working. We're doing. And God is working with us in ways that are inspiring and continuing to call people and to bring them. We need to be able to ask the question, what is it that Christ is doing? And what can he do with us? You know, in Luke chapter 4, Christ came and he preached a message out of Isaiah chapter 61. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and a recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed." And he closed the book and he sat down. He didn't read all the prophecies out of Isaiah chapter 61. And that goes on to talk about the work of God. And, you know, brethren, I think that work, there's still some work to be done. And we're committed to that. I know that you are as well. I believe that there's going to be people in some of these scattered parts of the world who are going to be needing a place of refuge, a place to come to hear the gospel and to be healed. And I think that that's the case even in the United States of America. I don't know how much longer we have. I sometimes as I look around in recent, with where we are right now, and I wonder, is there a moment that God has given of a kind of a revival, a stay to all the lunacy of the last 5 years? And kind of a halting of that, and a return to common sense, and you know, people are shaking their heads awake. Whoa, what's happened? And we might see an opportunity for the gospel to make significant inroads even in our own nation, as people seek understanding, and perhaps that return to sanity, if not necessarily normalcy, presents an opportunity for the truth and the gospel to be given. That's where we are. That is what we need to look at, and that's what we need to, I think, understand. Jesus said in John 14, "Do not believe that I am in the Father and the Father in me. The words that I speak to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does the work. Most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these he will do, because I go to the Father." If we can see with the eyes that the servant of Elisha saw and had, of the power of God with us, behind us, then there are many things that God can yet do to call first fruits to his kingdom, because the work goes on, and we are called to be a part of that work. And if we are involved in that and praying about that, God's blessing is there. I hope this has helped to broaden your perspective a little bit as to some of the things that are taking place in the church right now, at least in the international areas, and what when you will read about that or hear about that in the future, you will realize that these are, you know, important developments to serve the people that God's calling to make many sons to the glory of his family and his kingdom. Appreciate the time to have been with you here today. Look forward to talking with you afterwards and spending some more time. So.
Thank you for bringing us information like that, Mr. McNeely. Beautiful. At the close of services, I've been asked to announce if you could remove your belongings maybe to the side, and we'll be setting up additional tables for the potluck. And we hope you stay around and enjoy each other and the food. So with that, we're going to sing 157. If you take your songbooks or look at the monitor, please stand. By this shall all men know, Mr. Ralph Jalemski will lead us in closing prayer. by the way to live. Love each other as you do, with the love I've given you. And by this shall all men know, all around the world you'll show, that you are my disciples. You're my sister and my brother, and by this shall all men know, every friend and every foe, that you are my disciples if you love one another. Not called to be lukewarm or cold, but zealous like the men of old. Do the will of God above, grow in His eternal love. And by this shall all men know, all around the world you'll show, that you are my disciples. You're my sister and my brother, and by this shall all men know, every friend and every foe, that you are my disciples if you love one another. I give my life for all mankind, and call you at this special time. Do the work and feed the flock, build your house upon the rock. And by this shall all men know, all around the world you'll show, that you are my disciples. You're my sister and my brother, and by this shall all men know, every friend and every foe, that you are my disciples if you love one another.
Our Heavenly God, as we come before your throne, we want to thank you, first of all, for that first message on world trends. You know, it's exciting. For some, it may be apprehensive. But anyhow, we need faith, and we ask for that faith to see us through. It's exciting because we see prophecy come alive. And we thank you for the message on the work. You know, that is our focus, and along with preparing ourselves. And we have made our word, made our presence known in different parts of the world. It takes organization, takes money, and it also is exciting. It shows that we have a dynamic work. You know, it's moving forward with a purpose. And we need labor for that harvest. So we ask that you fill that need. Give us that can-do spirit. You know, you got that Holy Spirit available for us, and we have it. And that should be reflected in our can-do attitude. So anyhow, we have much to do. So we thank you for that message. And before we close, we'd like to ask for your blessing on the food and the fellowship. And let us all depart in peace. So in your Son's most holy and righteous name, we ask and thank. Amen.